Alright, between today and Thursday, I'd like to go over Chapter 4. In fact, I've created this. It's pretty simple, but this is what the schedule I hope we can stick to for the semester. So you can see it. I'm not going to read it to you, but basically it's covering a chapter a week. Last week we covered 3 chapters because there was a lot of simplistic types of stuff in there. Again, I'm expecting you to be following along with me, and when we get done, I'm expecting you to hand me in your version of this Corba website. Now, if you're following along and doing it while I'm doing it, great. If you want to do it on your own, that's also fine. I'm not sure exactly what date we'll put on that, but again, notice this is what we've covered and this is what we've yet to cover. So my hope is that today, between today and Thursday, we can cover all of Chapter 4. If it turns out that we can cover all of it in the class period, then the next period will just basically be a lab. All right, for you to try to practice the stuff or catch up or do whatever it is you have to do. So the hope is then that by, I guess, late October, all right, that you'll have the rest of the semester, so that's weeks 11 through 17, so like 7 weeks to work on a project. That project will be for you to actually create a site. And as I mentioned, I've got to get my butt in gear and put out specs, but I want you to do everything from listing what your requirements are to actually completing the project. All right. So, like I said, there'll be more on that, and I did throw this out there on the P drive, so if you want to see it, you'll be able to. Now, notice it also says it's got today's date on it, and it's also saved as version 1. Stuff does happen. I could get sick, something could happen, we could have to miss for whatever reason. All right. I don't anticipate that happening, but you never know. So if that does, I'll adjust the schedule accordingly. I think this is a very doable schedule. All right. Again, I think that every one of you in here, whether I know you and have had you for classes before or not, you all know enough that you probably could go through this book on your own. All right. I literally, when I got the book, that's what I did. This summer, I went through every chapter on my own. I built the site. I did a bunch of the stuff that they told you to do. I'm still trying to get the actual source code for the book, but when you go into Pact Publishing, when you go into their website, that's the publisher of the book, and you ask for source code, it goes almost into an infinite loop because they ask you to click this link, and then you have to fill in something, and I filled it in, and you click another link, and it takes you right back to where you were to begin with. So I sent them a detailed letter today talking about my frustration with trying to get their source code. Why do I want their source code? Because in the book, they assume that you're using certain images and the logo and some other stuff that we don't have. All right, that's the main reason. Like I said, I've already done it, so I'm not worried about it. I don't have to turn it in anyway. All right, but if you would want to use the images that they have, I would make them available to you. All right, so if they do that, great. If they don't, we'll just, I literally did go out last week and I thought this was interesting, but maybe that's just me. I went out and literally Googled bad art, and you can get some hits. You notice there's MOBA, not Corba, but MOBA, the Museum of Bad Art. Now, bad art is kind of in the eyes of the beholder, because I went through some of the stuff that was in here. I thought some of it wasn't bad art at all. All right, and just in the same way, the stuff that's in the book as we go through it, you may or may not think that it's bad art. All right. All right. So if you're following along, I'm on page 67, again, the beginning of Chapter 4. All right. And the author says, basically, you've kind of iterated your way around through Joomla. You've got a fairly decent idea of what's going on. So now they're imagining that you have gotten this call from Corba, collectors of really bad art. They want you to build a website, and they need it fast because they're going to have a show and they want to be able to highlight the actual site too. So as you can see on the bottom of page 66 and going on to the top of page 67, first thing we want to do is remove all the sample data. All right, and we will physically remove it and we'll trash it, meaning it won't be there anymore. Now, they do mention in the book that there's not a really nice little uninstall process if you want to remove the sample data that you've added. So you can either go through this process that they'll explain here, or you can reinstall Joomla, and when you reinstall it, you can basically say you don't want any sample data whatsoever. All right, so when we go through this, if you have problems, you always have that out, that you could literally uninstall it, reinstall it, and don't have any sample data whatsoever. All right, as it says, we'll customize the site template. Yeah. Yeah. No. What you can do is with the pages on the first site, you can't just hide them. And what they're going to have you do here is they're going to have you totally clean up the site. Okay? I mean down to bare bones. Then they're going to have you make a copy of it. And then you can use the copy, and you could do the same kind of thing then. You could use that copy and start a new site from there. And then basically you just tell it which of the copies you'd want it to be active. I mean, there's other ways you can do it too, but that's probably among the easiest ways of doing it. All right. As it says, and we'll add content. They break it down basically into kind of a three-pronged process. As it says, we'll create the framework, we'll add articles, and then we'll add menu items. From there, we'll add new functionality. Adding this contact form is really nothing. I'd suggest when you do that, just put yourself in there as a contact. All they say when you create the contact form basically is to create the form, and the only things that they really ask that you put in it are your name, I think your email address, and your phone number. All right. You can use your BTC email address. You can use another email address. You don't have to use your home phone. You can use my office phone. You can make up a number. It really doesn't matter. All right. Then it says finish your first fully functional Joomla Power website. So this is what they want you to be creating in here when you get all done. Now, a couple things. First of all, the author, to create what's in here, the stuff that's right here for the logo, the author used Photoshop, which we don't have here. All right, but then he mentions that if you want to go and create something similar to that on your own, he gives you some free products that, some links to free products that you can use if you want to. So I'm going to expect that if you like that logo, you can use that. If you don't like it, you can create your own. All right, as long as it's within reason, somewhat tasteful, whatever you want to call it. So hopefully when you look at this, you can realize and recognize that this looks a heck of a lot different from what's out there right now. All right, as far as the stuff that's in here. Not only that, when you look at it right now, there's things that we're going to add, such as some HTML right here. All right, and that's the other thing. I added that myself on my site, so I created it myself. I couldn't get it to line up kind of the way theirs did, make it pretty, so to speak, like theirs did. I could make it close, but it didn't look exactly like it. All right, and notice what we'll have in here. The home page, which is here, and the contact us, which will bring up the form information. All right, this is pretty much a featured article right here, and hopefully you notice when you look at each one of those articles, they have a small image by them, and they have a paragraph or so of information. And then when you click the read more, it'll literally just open up that page. Well, basically, what you see on your screen will just be that article with a bigger image in it. All right. There was one more thing I wanted to say, and now, of course, I can't remember. Oh, I know what it is. I've mentioned this to you before. If you care, fine. If you don't care, also fine. But what they do, again, is they just go out to lipsum.com, and that's basically where they get their, oops, sorry. That's where they go to get all of the text. It's just garbage text that they're putting in. You don't have to do that. Literally, I suppose if you really wanted to, you could put your own text in there. It doesn't really matter. All right, but that's just, so what I'm saying is the stuff that the authors use. For instance, right near the beginning, I think one of the first things they do is they tell you to come in and put in 4 paragraphs. So if I go down to the thing here, put in 4, click it, then what comes up are 4 paragraphs. If you don't like those, like I said, and you want to create your own, or you even want to just create one and copy it 4 times, it really doesn't matter. All right. So for right now, the stuff that they do, it's kind of simplistic in that way. All right. So page 69, they say meet your client. I'm not going to read that to you. You can read it yourselves. It's pretty much what we've already talked about. All right. Now, one thing to realize is there are going to be times when they're going to ask you for a name, and they'll typically put in Corba for like our name or a title. Then for a description, they'll put in collectors of really bad art. All right. What you're going to notice as we go through this is sometimes when you go and you fill in the title, you don't even put down a description because you let the system generate it for you automatically. We'll get to that later. So here's their wish list in here. Again, I'm not going to read it to you. By now, hopefully everybody is comfortable with, realizes that when you go onto the system and you go into here, that's the front end. And again, when you come in here and you type in administrator at the end, all right, and it gives you that, and you log in, then you're at the back end. All right, we've talked about this before. And again, when you want to switch back and forth between them, all right, just a couple things. You can click up here, which will put you into a preview mode, all right, etc. And you can always go here and you can click in the upper left-hand corner, and that'll automatically get you to this screen. So if you're under components and you go to contacts, and under contacts you go someplace else, and you're in here a little bit deep. So I go to categories, so I'm into here, and I don't remember exactly even where I am. I can always click right here, and that gets me back to the home page. All right. Hopefully that's pretty much almost second nature to you right now, and that's what they talk about in here. So again, the first thing we're going to do in here, starting on the bottom of the page, is they want you to come in and start cleaning up the data. All right. So as it says, in Chapter 2 we installed it, we added the sample data. That was done so we could go through the material in Chapters 1, 2, and 3. But as it says, now that you're going to build your own site, you really don't need that anymore. As I mentioned to you previously, there's no nice uninstall sample data option that currently exists. So either we can clean it ourselves manually, or we can do a reinstall. The author, I think, has had you do this clean it up manually, so you can get used to some of the options that are in here, and when you remove stuff, so you can see what happens. All right. Talks about the fact that it's not a very exciting thing to do, but by doing it again, you'll see some of the stuff that you actually have to do. All right. So again, the author says here, removing the sample content. It says right now your sample content consists of 3 different groups. All right. It says the actual content, the menu, and the modules. So again, if I come back here and we take a look at what's actually in here, okay, so the sample content is the stuff that you see here. Most of the module stuff is what you see over here. All right. So again, that's what we want to get rid of, and ideally, when we get done, what it should look like, more or less, and I'll turn back in just a second, but notice if I turn up to about 5 pages, to page 75, that's what it should look like when we get done. All right, we've got everything cleaned up. All right, so I'm just going to walk through the same things that he walks through. So I'm on the bottom of page 70. And he says, gravitate your way over to Content Article Manager. So again, to do that, we've got to be over here. All right, Content Article Manager. Again, I'm just following the steps as they begin in the middle of page 70. It says above the article listing on the right-hand side, you'll notice that there's some drop-downs. All right, and over here, as we work our way through, you see this different stuff that's in there. All right, and it says you'll notice 3 drop-down boxes. Okay. Yeah, am I missing something? What's that? Content Article Manager. Well, like I said, I've gone through all this before, so I know it's all here. I'll look for it. That's fine. So it says what we want are the 3 drop-down boxes, and right now, by default, I think it shows about 20 articles. All right, so there could be more in here. Notice if we go to page 2, etc., we can move our way, iterate our way through there. And above the article listing, on the right side, you'll notice 3 drop-down boxes. All right, I'm not too proud to ask for help. Does somebody see something that I don't see here? content, article manager. Oh, I'm wondering if it's because I still have the home page open here that possibly I screwed something up. I'm going to get out and get back in again. Now, how many of yours look like mine up here right now? All right. No, not kind of. Just what I'm saying is looks like mine. All right. Yeah. That's what I thought that it did. Like I said, when I ran through this before, I had no problem. So this is a great start, isn't it? All right. Featured articles, categories. We'll get it. It's just a matter of finding where it is. So. Do I have the screen reduced? No. There it is. Okie dokie. That might have been what it was. All right, so they want you to click down here and change it to all. And hopefully the idea behind that makes sense. You're choosing everything. Then when you click over here, basically, and you check all, that's got everything. All right. Sometimes the stuff that you work on here is really intuitive as you go through it. Sometimes it's not. Like I said, I've gone through all this, and some of the stuff that was in here I thought was pretty simple. All right, and I thought we could whip through it fairly quickly. Some of the other stuff, it's like, in your, and maybe when the author did it, I have no idea how much it's changed between version 3 and 3.3. But there's times in the book where I've got a question mark because the author says, now, if you look on your right side and it's left. And it may not sound like a big thing, but when you're going through it and you're looking, and kind of the same thing we did right here. All right. So it says the number 20 indicates the amount of articles that are shown on the screen at a time. Click on the 20 and change the value to all, which is what I've done. It says now the full list is displayed on the page. Select the checkbox at the top. This is on the top of page 71. All right, so the checkbox, it's up here where it says check all. That grabbed everything. Okay. Then it says click on the trash button. Everybody cool with that? Maybe you've done it already. Maybe you're ahead of me, which is fine. All right. Now again, just so you realize, that did not physically remove it from the system. That put it in the trash. It's kind of like you dumped it in your recycle bin, if you're working on your regular desktop, but until you go and empty the recycle bin, the stuff is still there. All right, and I believe, at least when you think about it, it would make sense that probably the reason they do something like that is just in case you change your mind. All right, so click on the trash button on the toolbar. All right, and again, I've already done that. So it says when articles are in the trash, they're still in the Joomla database should you wish to restore them. To permanently delete them, all right, in the select status drop-down. In the select status drop-down, which we'll find in a second, all right, it says to permanently delete them in the select status drop-down on the left-hand side of the screen, select trashed. All right. Now, I'm looking in here for select status. Do you see a select status? Do you have a select status on yours? I remember, that's why I've got in my book. That's okay. I've got a question mark right there. All right. Search tools. Select status. Everybody see that? All right. And then after that, you want to select trashed. says all articles trashed are displayed on the page. Again, select all the articles, and this time select empty trash. All right, right up here. Now it says the articles no longer exist. Okay? All right, so it says now remove the sample categories. So we can do the same thing with select category when you come up here. All right? Boy, this is, wish I'd gone through this last night, but I didn't. All right, there you go. Click select categories on the left. All right, do the same thing. Check there. And send it to the trash. All right. So again. All right, so we've done the same type of thing. Now, if you take a look on your screen right here, it is suggested that you do keep this one. Anybody have any idea what uncategorized would be? It's literally stuff that doesn't fit into any category. Later on, what we'll do is when we create the contact form, I believe they stick it under uncategorized. And it's always suggested that you keep that one there. All right, now notice it says 20 categories selected or successfully trashed. If I come again and take a look, you can already see what's been cleaned up. All right, so you can see it's getting there, so to speak. All right. So if you take a look in the book on page 72, that's pretty much what my screen looks like right now. All right. And I wrote in the book, make sure you verify this with the class. So for lack of better words, we just did. All right. So it says in the example, the site header shows the current site name. If you followed along, that does say Corba. We're gonna change that and work with that just a little bit. If for some reason when you created it, it wasn't Corba, they do mention in the book on the bottom of page 72, and you can do this or not do this, but on the bottom of the page there, it says if you want to change the site name that's displayed in the header, you go to System, Global Configuration, Site Settings, Site Name. All right. So we've gone through step 1, which gets us to step 2. Deleting menus and other modules. And what's that? Well, when you take a look at what's left here, we've got all these menus here. And they really don't make a whole heck of a lot of sense right now because those menus are pointing to pages from which we've removed the content. All right? So again, we're on page 73. It says, apart from articles and managers, the example site contains menus and modules. Okay? And it says, don't even worry, menus are modules, also more in Chapter 8. So again, what the author is doing here, for lack of better words, is kind of a prelude as you're building this stuff up. So a lot of the stuff that we'll talk about here, they'll talk about more in later chapters. I will tell you, what we talked about before, for instance, just so you're aware of this, give you a little preview. I think it's the Chapter 11, but I could be, or Chapter 11 up here, but I could be wrong. That chapter, much of it's on CSS. I'm not going to go over that with you. All right, they go through CSS examples. In fact, they're going to go through a CSS example in this chapter. And they start to explain what CSS is. I don't feel the need to have to do that with you. All right. So, on page 73, they've got their time for action, deleting menus. So we're going to follow these steps that you see right here. All right, so again, I'm on page 73 in the book, and what I want is to be in my administrator side, and as it says here, go to Menus, Menu Manager. Now, I'm going to just get back to my main page here. All right, and again, notice that there's two ways that we can do this. I just want to make sure you see this again. I can go to Menus, click that, and go to Menu Manager. Or I can just click on Menu Manager over here. You'll eventually navigate over to the one or ones you feel more comfortable with. But quite often there's multiple ways of doing the same thing here. I found myself always going up to the menu here and going down. You may not agree with that. All right. So we went to Menu, Menus, Menu Manager. It says select 3 example menus you won't be needing. About Joomla, the park, Australian parks, and I believe it was the fruit shop, right? It says, now notice what it says here. Do not select all of them. Do not select the main menu, the top, and the user menu, because those are things that eventually are going to be blank anyway as we remove the other stuff. All right? And that's what we're doing here is we're creating a prototype that we want to use and we'll make a copy of. And then when we work with the copy, we'll be able to do whatever we want. One of the reasons that I picked this book, and I like this book, is the author says stuff that makes sense, but quite often isn't said in a textbook. Like, hey, once you've done this and you've cleaned it out and you've got ProStar, which is the default template, and it's empty, work with a copy. And it sounds so simple, but if you don't work with a copy, there's two things that are important about that. One is you could screw it up. All right? 2 is sometimes when you go and you choose things and you add things and you do things, it's going to go and make changes. Joomla will make changes for you. But now, if we're working with a copy, we can be assured that the only thing we're changing is the copy. All right. So, it says click on the delete button. And as the author says, a warning message appears. Okay? And again, we should always make sure, I'm going to cancel, that the ones that you picked are the right ones. So not user menu, not title, not main menu, but we do want to choose About Joomla, Australian Parks, and Fruit Shop. So I'm going to click delete and I'm going to say OK. All right. Now, then it gets a little, technically, just so you know, let's assume for a second that, geez, Jeff, I wasn't really paying attention. I removed all of them. All right. So if you removed all of them, you can recreate them. You can go back in there and create the new menus. All right. It's going to be a little bit more work, but you can do that. It's not that it's a problem. You can go back and create any menus you want. So the author says, although we'll keep the main menu, we don't need the redundant links. The only link we need is the link for the homes, for home. All right. So turning up to page 74 on step 3, it says go over to menus, main menu. All right. So you can either click here, but that assumes you're going to do something, or you can just click on the link. Now I'm under menus, main menu. All right. And it says select all the items except for home. I believe that you can click here and then click there. See that? Everybody see what it is? It's not like it's a big thing, but you can select all, then deselect. Notice when you deselect, the select all thing changes, but the rest of them should still all be highlighted. Now, if you would rather go through there and just keep clicking all of them yourselves, you can do it that way too. There's really no difference between those. All right? So then it says click on trash to delete. As it says, as you won't be needing these menu links anymore, all right, again, do the select status, all right, and under the select status, select trashed, and then again, select empty trash. Hopefully I didn't do that too fast. All right, so again, what we did was we select on the status, we select trashed, because this is the stuff right now that's been flagged for deletion, and when we say empty trash, we want all of it. I'm sorry. We want all of them. And empty trash. And it should be empty. All right. Now, again, notice that if we go back to the site, it's not going to look like a lot of stuff was done, but you'll notice as we go through there, yeah, a lot of stuff was done. Under this site, the only thing that's in there right now is home. All right. So what just happened, and again, the author does this, if you haven't noticed, throughout the book. He kind of goes back and says, this is what we've done. So the site, as it says, is just about empty. All right. Again, I don't want to read what the author says in here. But there's a few points that he mentions that I do want to mention to you. We're going to remove some stuff right now. We're going to remove some modules. All right, and the author says, don't worry, you can always recreate them again. But this is the key sentence. This is the one right here. It says, by deleting modules, you just throw away the instance of those modules used in the sample site, not the associated functionality, because that's still built into the software. All right? So, as it says, The module deletion drill should seem familiar by now, so I'm going to ask that you do this. Go to the extensions drop down and click on Module Manager. All right, so I'm just going to follow the steps as they're shown there. As it says, it displays a list of the modules that are in use. Make sure all are displayed. Select the All button. All right, as it says, click the select box to the left of status. Now deselect the ones that you're going to use for your site. So keep this site, top, user, all the ones that are shown here. All right, and it says after you've deleted them, you don't need to use the trash. All right, so ideally, and I'm going to bring this back in a second, when we get done, now it's going to look just like this. It's almost bare. So I'm going to leave this up there, and I'm going to ask that you go through these steps. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do this. So look at what's up here or in your book or whatever, and then when, like I said, it's 8:31. I'm going to give you 3 or 4 minutes to do this. Then I'm going to go back and do the same thing on mine. All right? So by that time, when we're done, we'll be up to virtually the middle of page 75. So we want to run through the steps that are shown here. They will be in blue in just a second. There you go. You what? You have 2. I'd keep them both on, just for now. Right. And we'll see if I do in just a second. Amanda just mentioned on hers, she has 2 search pages that I say if you do, just keep them both. All right. Now think about the question that Kelly asked earlier. We were talking about this. Ideally, when we get done with this, and we're going to save this, when we get all done, we're going to use the template we're working with, but we're going to make a copy of it. And like I said, you won't have to go through this again, because if you decide you want to use this template for your actual assignment, it's already going to be cleared out. All right. Just so you know, too, there literally are hundreds of free Joomla templates that you can use. So you won't have to use this one for your project. You'll be able to go out there and grab a crisp, pretty much blank new template that's out there and work with that. And the other suggestion I make is if we're going through this, I think you're all smart enough in here that you can get this. I think you could all do this without me here. But the point is, if you really fall behind or something's wrong and you don't want to ask, then just follow along and watch. And then go back and do it on your own. All right? Be careful. There are similarly modules such as breadcrumbs in position none. What they're saying is there's more than one breadcrumb. No, I wouldn't remove all those. I just remove what they told you to remove here. Yes, what they're saying is there's breadcrumbs and there's breadcrumbs in position none. I would just everything that you see in there that says this site top user menu search login form and breadcrumbs I'd keep, regardless of where it is. And everything else I'd get rid of. That's why if it's faster to just check those things yourself manually, then do that. All right, so I'm going to go through and attempt to do the same. So, as it says here again, I'm just following the same steps that I asked you to follow. So it says in the extensions, in the extensions drop down, all right, they're telling you there, choose module manager, all right. And again, as it says, under the module manager, you see there's a lot of stuff there. It says it gives you a list of all the modules that are in use. In the select box, indicating the number of items, select all. So for right now, I can do that. I'll come back and change them later. All right. Then it says, make sure you keep this site. All right. Right there. On the right. Ah, thank you. Yeah, there you go. All right. Now we can check. Thank you. So as we work our way through here, as it says, what don't we want to check? So anything that says in here, well, breadcrumbs, it says don't. All right, search, it says don't. Again, I'm just working my way through here. All right, so I'm just going to, like I said, I'm just going to work my way through here. All right. And what else was there? There was this site, top, user menu. There's user menu. There's this site. There's top. All right, so far I've unchecked this site, top, user menu, search. I got to find log, or was login form? Was that the other one? It's at the bottom. All right. So again, I'm going to double check by taking a look at what is unchecked. All right. Just, if I have to, physically mark it off myself so I can see what's not checked in here. Login form. All right. This site. User menu. And as I work my way up. Top. All right. Top and breadcrumbs. So top. Breadcrumbs, I've got user menu, I need search and login, which I think I've already done up at the login at the bottom, and search was done up here with breadcrumbs. Now, when you look, there is a breadcrumbs here, as they say, and there's a breadcrumbs down here. So what I want to do is look them before I remove that, and just take a look at what it says. So that's position 2, breadcrumbs all. Okay, so that's positioned. All right, so that's in position 2. What's the difference between that? That's got position none. All right. It says, be careful, there are similarly named modules that you can delete, such as breadcrumbs in position none, and the module named login. Well, to me, the way I'm reading that is they're telling you not to remove that. That's the way I'm reading this. Yeah, I know. But right. So it's where it's going to be physically positioned. And one of the things we talked about in an earlier chapter, all right, one of the things that we talked about was where the positioning is. Now, that's why when it says be careful, that's saying to me that we don't want to remove that. Now, you may or may not agree with that, but I'm gonna uncheck it, or have it checked right now. All right, so there's a search there, which is the none, and there is a search down at the bottom, you said, and I'll have that one checked. All right, so I'm gonna uncheck that one. All right. And I think login may be in there twice reading that. Okay? So there is login form at position 7, and there's also a login. So what I'm saying is I'm thinking that the ones that we shouldn't remove are the one with position none. So I'm going to uncheck those. And again, if I'm wrong, I can always go back and, reinstall it later if I have to. Search, top, good. Breadcrumbs, good. All right, user menu, good. This site, good. Login form, it's on position 7, so that should be that. I don't think that's the one that I want to remove. All right, so remember, the ones that are checked are the ones that you're going to remove. And the ones that are unchecked, you're not going to be removing. All right, so the breadcrumbs and search on the none, I'm going to keep. All right, they tell you to keep these other ones, right? So again, did I make any mistakes? You may not agree with the way that I looked at these, and that's fine. Either way, I'm just trashing it anyway. All right, so I'm going to go back now and look And again, you'll notice that as we keep doing this, there's less and less stuff here. Yes? Well, one good thing about that, let's say okay, the question is, can you go back? The answer is yes, because remember, we didn't come back afterwards in here and change our status. So technically that stuff is still in the trash, but we didn't permanently trash it. So we should be able to bring it back again. All right. And the other thing is, even if you do screw it up, you can always go back and manually add these things. You know, you could make, you know, one of the things I thought of doing was just having us literally remove everything. So when we got done, the site was totally empty, everything, and then rebuild it from scratch. The problem is if you do that and it works okay for everybody except one or two people, then what do you do with those one or two people? Then basically what you have to do is they have to uninstall the software, reinstall the software, and then go through the steps as they were in the book. All right. No, to be honest with you, if I figured out that I screwed something up as far as what's here, I'd go back and I'd create a new module. All right? That's how I would do it. But if I, you know, and I didn't do it here, all right? But if I'm following what's in the book, I've been ticking them off in the book as I've been removing stuff, but I want to make sure that if I screw something up, you know, if I'm about to remove something that I think later, you know what, I might need that. Then before I remove it, not only am I going to check it or uncheck it or whatever, but I'm going to kind of like little annotate someplace in the book or somewhere else on a piece of paper or whatever. Hey, I remove this. Just in case I screw it up again, I can go back and add it. It should be in this position, and it should have these attributes associated with it. All right. You literally would come right in here in the module manager. You click new. All right. And you'll note as we move around in here, you'll see how you can reposition stuff. All right. All right. So building our site. So we're basically heading from scratch now. On the bottom of page 75, and as the author mentions here, it's a three-pronged process. This is the rest of the chapter. They spend a lot of time talking to you about customizing the layout and adding the content, and then there's just a couple pages at the end where we add some extras. All right, but think about what they're saying. All right, customize the layout, tweak the basic layout to fit your needs. We've already been doing that. All right, add content. So that'll be adding articles. One thing to realize is as we start doing this and you start adding articles, you're going to add an article, okay? And you're going to think, boom, I did everything they did in the book. You're going to look at it and guess what? It's not going to show. You have to realize that, again, when we're working with this product, with this software, technically, when you're adding a new article, it's kind of the equivalent of adding a new web page. But since technically they aren't web pages, you have to link to that article someplace. It has to be in a menu or a sub-menu. You have to be able to get to it. So you'll create an article and you'll go back from the administrator side to the front end, and it's like, it's not there. No, you didn't screw up. You have to make a link to that article. Then it will show. So just keep that in mind as we get going. So as it says, this is what we're going to do. So notice it says Joomla allows you to edit the current template using the template manager. Now, before we do this, and if you want to follow along, that's fine, but I'm going to take my time on this. But because notice what the author says right here. This is what I mentioned to you before. It says, let's make a copy of the current template. So now you pretty much have removed stuff that we're not going to need. So we've got the equivalent of just about a blank template. So the author says that, hey, rather than working with this blank template, let's make a copy of the blank template and work with that. Not all that different. I may have mentioned this to you in the PHP class the other day, but in case I didn't, it's like in PHP, if you decide that you want to go in there and make some changes to the php.ini file, the ini file, the initialization file, you should always make a copy of the original. Right? That way if you screw it up, you can always go back to the original. The same kind of thing here. We're going to make a copy, so if as you're working your way through here, you screw up, then what you've screwed up with is the copy. That's all. So, 3 steps right here, as the author says. To create a copy, we're going to go to Extensions, Template Manager, Click Templates in the submenu. All right. Then in the Template Manager's template screen, click on the ProStar details. What this has in here, just so you know, I'm telling you this as we get going. ProStar right now is the template that you're using. Okay? And not like it's a big thing, but I want to mention something to you. There are templates in there, and if you say, geez, I don't even know what that is, I'm going to remove it. Please don't do that, because even the admin side has a template associated with it. And if you accidentally remove the wrong side, or the wrong template rather, then I have no idea what your admin side is going to look like if it doesn't have a template associated with it. But probably it won't be real good. All right. So as it says, they want you to come in there and customize the template and click on the copy button. The author suggests that when you do this, you call it ProStar_copy. And notice on here, you can only use letters, numbers, dashes, and underscores. So in other words, don't put blank spaces in there when you're creating it. Okay? And click copy, and as it says, the pop-up will close. Click close, and then, as it says, switch to the Template Manager style screen. All right? Then it says click the white star next to ProStar Copy Default. I'm running through this quickly on purpose to let you know that even after you do all this stuff, when you go to step 3 and you go to the Template Manager style screen, the orange thing that's in there, there'll be a little orange star. That star will be by your original one. The orange star has the one that's active. So you can go in and make the copy, but if you don't change it from the copy, from the original to the copy, you're still working with the original. Hopefully all that makes sense and I didn't really screw you up too badly. But I'll leave this up here for a minute and then I'll go back and try to do it. All right? So I'll give you till about 8:50, and then I'll tell you what, after you get this done, take your break, and then we'll start up again at 9. Question? Comment? All right. I thought your hand was up. Maybe you were just exercising. So again, go through these 3 steps that you see in the book on page 76. Then we'll take a break and start up again around 9 o'clock. That makes sense. Well, I would think especially on a site that was really like an Amazon or a whatever, something that's really got a ton of stuff on it, you know. But for a small, small little site, yeah, depending on how complex they are. Yeah. So again, I'm just going to follow the same steps. Get back into here. All right. And as it says, to create a copy, go to Extensions, Template Manager. All right. Click Templates in the submenu on the left-hand side, which is right there. All right. In the Template Manager template screen, click on the ProStar Details files. So these are the different things that are available to you right now. All right. What we're going to do later, if you'd listen to this, please, you don't have to look, but if you listen, later we are going to do some work later on in the book, and there are the instructions that you're going to see that are in the book are really confusing. All right, you kind of, for lack of better words, you've been warned. All right, we'll try to walk you through it, and I've annotated my book to talk about some of the problems that I had and what I did, etc. Now, please, again, look right here. Notice that that is the default for your admin side, and that's the default for your front end side. Kind of sad with the way things are going in the world that by default the administrator side is called ISIS. When you think about what's going on in the world, that just hit me. I don't know why, but it did. All right. I didn't know that. Take it to the template manager, customize page, click on the copy button. Enter the name such as ProStar_copy. Now I did hit the underscore, it's not showing it here. So I'm hoping it will be in there. We'll find out in just a second. You can, okay. Click Copy Template in the pop-up screen. I don't see a pop-up screen, but I'll try the save and close. All right. There's ProStar_copy. All right. Then they say switch back to the style screen by clicking the styles link. It says you can reset this by clicking the white star. When you click the white star, it'll become orange, and the one that was orange becomes white. Does all that make sense? Okay. Yeah. I think that's, to be honest with you, I think that's the most important thing. All right. So again, I'm going to pick it up on the bottom of page 76 in about, let's say 5 after 9 because it's 8:55.